High Counselor Vraxis reviewed the human diplomatic files with growing satisfaction. His crystalline form pulsed with a soft blue glow, the Zenthari equivalent of a smile. "Excellent," he murmured to his aide, Kelthrin. "The psychological profile is clear. Humans are conflict-averse. Perfect subjects for vassalage." Kelthrin's tentacles curled uncertainly. "Sir, are you certain? Their historical records show extensive warfare." "Ancient history," Vraxis interrupted dismissively. "Look at their recent behavior. 50 years of galactic contact, and they've apologized for everything. They apologized for their ships being too loud in space. They apologized for their music being culturally insensitive. They even apologized for breathing oxygen, claiming it might offend species with different atmospheric requirements." He pulled up a compilation of human diplomatic interactions. In each one, the human representative was bowing, saying sorry, offering compromises, and seeking to avoid confrontation. They've attended 47 council sessions and voted abstain on 39 of them, Vraxis continued. They refused to take sides in disputes. They funded the Paxian relief effort even though the Paxians had insulted their ambassador. They're textbook conflict avoiders. Kelthrin accessed the military assessment. "But sir, their military capabilities are purely defensive," Vraxis said firmly. "Small fleet, minimal weaponry, and their ships are designed with escape pods that can hold the entire crew. They're literally planning to run away from every fight. No, Kelthrin, humans are sheep who've stumbled into a galaxy of wolves. They just don't know it yet." The Zenthari Empire had been expanding for centuries through a simple strategy: identify weak species, offer protection, and gradually absorb them. Humans seemed like the perfect next target. "Their ambassador arrives tomorrow," Kelthrin noted. Marcus Webb. Career diplomat, no military background, known for his building bridges philosophy. "Perfect," Vraxis's glow intensified. "We'll begin with reasonable demands. Resource sharing agreements, technology transfers, mutual defense pacts. They'll agree to everything to avoid conflict. Within a decade, Earth will be a Zenthari protectorate in all but name." What Vraxis didn't understand, what the entire council had failed to grasp, was that humans didn't fear conflict. They feared what they became during conflict. And they had spent 50 years desperately trying to avoid finding out if they'd truly changed since the last time they'd let that side of themselves loose. The difference between fear of conflict and fear of what you're capable of during conflict is subtle, but crucial. Ambassador Marcus Webb arrived at Council Station Terminus the next morning, his shuttle docking with characteristic human politeness, waiting for 3 other ships to dock first despite having priority clearance. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes, wearing Earth's simple diplomatic uniform. He smiled warmly at the Zenthari honor guard and apologized for his shuttle being a bit scuffed from the journey. Vraxis met him in the grand reception hall, flanked by an intentionally intimidating display of Zenthari warriors, each 3 meters tall, armored in crystalline battle suits. "Ambassador Webb, welcome to Terminus Station. High Counselor, the honor is mine." Webb's bow was respectful, non-threatening. "Thank you for accommodating my schedule. I know you're very busy." "Not at all," Vraxis replied smoothly. "In fact, I've cleared my entire week for our discussions. The Zenthari Empire has a proposal that will benefit both our peoples greatly." As they walked toward the negotiation chambers, Vraxis noticed something odd. Webb was relaxed, but his eyes constantly tracked exits, guard positions, structural weaknesses. It was subtle, the behavior of someone trained to assess tactical situations. But surely that was just paranoia on Vraxis's part. Humans were conflict-averse. Everyone knew that. Everyone was wrong. The negotiation chamber was designed to intimidate. High ceilings, dark walls, and a table that positioned the Zenthari delegation on a raised platform. Standard power play. Ambassador Webb entered, glanced around with those assessing eyes, and sat down without comment. He placed a single datapad on the table and folded his hands. "High Counselor, I'm eager to hear your proposal." Vraxis began his presentation. Mutual defense pacts, resource-sharing agreements, technology exchanges, all worded diplomatically but essentially giving the Zenthri Empire control over Earth's military decisions, resource allocation, and technological development. Webb listened patiently, taking notes, asking clarifying questions. He was polite, engaged, and showed no signs of resistance. After 2 hours, Vraxis concluded. "So, Ambassador, do we have an agreement in principle?" Webb smiled that kind smile. "High Counselor, this is certainly comprehensive. I appreciate the effort that went into drafting these terms. However, I'm afraid Earth will have to decline." Silence. Vraxis's crystalline form flickered, surprise. "Decline? But surely, Ambassador, you see the benefits." "Oh, absolutely. The benefits to the Zenthri Empire are substantial." Webb's tone remained pleasant. "But the terms are unacceptable to Earth. We'd essentially be signing away our sovereignty." Kelthrin leaned forward. "Ambassador Webb, perhaps you don't understand the realities of galactic politics. Smaller species often require the protection of larger powers." "I understand perfectly," Webb interrupted gently. "Earth chooses to remain independent." Vraxis felt irritation building. This wasn't how conflict-averse species behaved. "Ambassador, I urge you to reconsider. The galaxy can be dangerous for unaligned worlds. Without powerful allies, Earth could face difficulties." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Webb's pleasant expression didn't change, but something in his eyes did. "High Counselor, was that a threat?" "Merely an observation," Vraxis said quickly. "Too quickly." Webb stood slowly. "High Counselor, I'm going to share something with you. Something that might clarify Earth's position." He activated his datapad. A holographic display showed Earth's history, but not the carefully curated diplomatic version the Council had seen. This was raw: world wars, nuclear weapons, genocides, and conflicts that had consumed entire continents. "This is what humans are capable of when we stop trying to be better," Webb said quietly. "We spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other. We built weapons that could sterilize our entire planet. We developed tactics, strategies, and technologies focused solely on destruction." The Zenthri delegation watched in growing horror. "And then, 70 years ago, we looked at what we'd become and were terrified. Not of being destroyed, of being destroyers. So we made a choice. We decided to be different. To be diplomatic, peaceful, and yes, conflict-averse." Webb turned to face Vraxis directly. "But make no mistake, High Counselor. We don't avoid conflict because we fear it. We avoid it because we fear what we'll do if we stop holding ourselves back. The moment we decide that peace has failed, we'll remember every lesson we learned during those 10,000 years of war. And those lessons are written in blood." Vraxis's glow had faded to a dim flicker. "You're threatening the Zenthri Empire?" "No," Webb said softly. "I'm declining your proposal and explaining why you shouldn't push the issue. There's a difference. Earth wants peace, High Counselor. We want it desperately. We'll compromise, negotiate, apologize, and bend over backward to maintain it. But we won't surrender our freedom for it." He gathered his datapad. "If the Zenthri Empire can accept Earth as an independent ally rather than a vassal state, we're happy to continue discussions. If not, this meeting is concluded." Webb walked toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and High Counselor. We apologize for any inconvenience. But not for our answer." The emergency council session was chaotic. Vraxis had called it immediately after Webb's departure, and now representatives from 40 species were shouting over each other. This is unprecedented. Ambassador Thex of the Vrillian Collective hissed. The humans refused a Zenthari protection agreement? Are they insane? Worse, Vraxis said darkly. They're dangerous. I've reviewed their complete historical records. The sanitized versions they initially provided were misleading. He displayed Webb's presentation, the wars, the weapons, the systematic violence. The chamber fell silent. Counselor Mira of the Paxian Federation, a species that resembled floating jellyfish, spoke carefully. High Counselor, with respect, this is ancient history. Humans have been peaceful for decades. Because they choose to be. Vraxis snapped. That's what Webb explained. They're not naturally peaceful. They're self-domesticated predators who've decided to behave. Do you understand the implications? Kelthrin pulled up comparative data. Council members, humans have attended 47 sessions and apologized 132 times. They've funded relief efforts for species that insulted them. They've abstained from votes that would have benefited them. This behavior suggests extreme conflict avoidance. Or extreme control, Ambassador Thex countered thoughtfully. What if they're not avoiding conflict, they're preventing themselves from engaging in conflict? Like a soldier who doesn't want to use his weapon because he knows exactly what it can do? The council erupted in debate again. Finally, High Admiral Krenth of the Talon Imperium, a warrior species that had fought in every major galactic war, stood. His avian features were sharp, predatory. I've reviewed the human military data, Krenth announced. The data we were allowed to see shows a small, defensive fleet. But I've noticed something odd. Their ships have redundancies that make no sense for peaceful explorers. Triple redundant power cores, armor plating beyond what's needed for asteroid deflection, and communication systems with military-grade encryption. He zoomed in on a human vessel's specifications. This isn't an exploration ship designed for war. This is a warship pretending to be an exploration vessel. The weapons aren't installed, but the mounting points are there. The targeting systems aren't active, but the hardware is present. It's like they built war machines and then chose not to arm them. Vraxis felt his confidence wavering. What are you suggesting, Admiral? I'm suggesting that humans have been performing the greatest act of restraint in galactic history, Krenth said slowly. They have the capability for violence, the knowledge of warfare, and the industrial capacity to build a war fleet. But they've chosen not to. The question is, what happens if we force them to choose differently? Counselor Mira drifted forward. High Counselor Vraxis, perhaps the Zenthari Empire should accept Earth's counteroffer. An alliance of equals rather than a protectorate. The Zenthari Empire doesn't negotiate with species who refuse our generosity, Vraxis said coldly. If humans won't accept our protection, they'll learn why they needed it. Admiral Krentha's feathers ruffled, a sign of agitation. High Counselor, I strongly advise against hostile action toward Earth. Noted, Admiral. But the Zenthari will not be refused by upstart primitives who've barely left their star system. Vraxis turned to his military attaché. Prepare a fleet. Standard intimidation deployment. 12 warships to Earth's system. We'll convince them to reconsider. As the council session dissolved into chaos, Admiral Krenth approached Ambassador Thex privately. This is a mistake, Krenth said quietly. You think humans are truly dangerous? I think humans are terrified of being dangerous. And there's nothing more dangerous than a peaceful warrior who's been forced to fight. Thex's scales rippled. What should we do? Krentha's eyes were dark. Pray that humans are as forgiving as they pretend to be. Because if they're not, the Zenthari just started a war they don't understand. Captain Jennifer Harrison of the UESS Discovery was conducting a routine survey of Jupiter's moons when the alert came through. Captain, we're detecting 12 unknown vessels entering the Sol system. Configuration matches Zenthari warships. Harrison's stomach dropped. She'd served 20 years in Earth's Navy, back when it was still called a Navy and not the Exploration and Defense Fleet. She knew what warships looked like. Sound General Alert. Get me a channel to Earth Command and... She paused, wake up the Admiral. 5 minutes later, Admiral James Riker's face appeared on screen. He was 70 years old, retired officially, but like many veterans, he'd been consulted by the military when Earth joined the galactic community. His eyes were hard. How many? 12, sir. Zenthari. They're heading straight for Earth. Weapon status? They're armed but weapons are cold. This looks like intimidation, not invasion. Riker's expression didn't change. Captain, implement Protocol 7. Authorization Riker Alpha 1. Harrison's hands trembled slightly as she entered the codes. Protocol 7 was what they'd hoped never to use, the rearmament protocol. Throughout the Sol system, 47 exploration vessels received the same order. Hidden weapons bays opened. Dormant targeting systems activated. Missile tubes that were sealed for safety unsealed. Humanity's fleet transformed from peaceful explorers into what they'd always secretly been, warships waiting for a war they prayed would never come. On Earth, Ambassador Webb received the news in his office. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and opened a secure channel to the President. Ma'am, the Zenthari have sent a fleet. I recommend we activate the Defense Council and prepare a response. President Elena Martinez appeared on screen. She was young for a president, only 45, but her eyes held the weariness of someone who understood history's weight. Marcus, we spent 50 years building credibility as peaceful. If we respond militarily. If we don't respond, we confirm we're easy targets, Webb interrupted. Ma'am, I tried diplomacy. They interpreted our desire for peace as weakness. Now we need to show them why we wanted peace so badly. Martinez was silent for a moment. Wake up the defense grid. Activate the reserves. And Marcus? Try one more time to find a peaceful solution. Yes, ma'am. The Zenthari fleet reached Earth orbit in a carefully choreographed formation, designed to look impressive and threatening. High Counselor Vraxis transmitted from his flagship. People of Earth, this is High Counselor Vraxis of the Zenthari Empire. Your government has unwisely refused our generous offer of protection. We are here to help you reconsider. You have 24 hours to accept our terms or face immediate economic sanctions and trade embargoes. Choose wisely. The transmission ended. Vraxis sat back, satisfied. Humans would panic, their economy would be threatened, and they'd cave. Classic intimidation tactics. What Vraxis didn't see was the response. Earth's exploration vessels had quietly surrounded his fleet. Weapons that supposedly didn't exist were now locked on target. Ground-based defense platforms that were under construction had just finished constructing themselves in record time. And every major military installation on Earth, installations that were supposed to be museums and historical sites, had suddenly become very active. Admiral Riker sent a single transmission to the Zenthari flagship. No threats, no demands, just a file transfer. Vraxis opened it. His crystalline form flickered in confusion, then horror. It was a simulation. A tactical simulation showing exactly what would happen if the Zenthari fleet fired on Earth. Every missile trajectory, every point defense system, every human countermeasure, calculated with terrifying precision. The simulation showed the Zenthari fleet destroyed in 14 minutes with 94% human survival rate. But that wasn't the horrifying part. The horrifying part was the second simulation. The human counteroffensive. Human ships arriving at the Zenthari homeworld. The systematic dismantling of their orbital infrastructure. The targeted strikes on military installations. And a final message. This is the war we don't want to fight. This is why we apologize constantly. This is why we avoid conflict. Not because we can't win, but because we can't stop once we start. Please don't make us remember who we used to be. Vraxis stared at the simulations. They were detailed beyond anything he'd seen. Every calculation was perfect, every tactic brutal and efficient. This wasn't hypothetical planning, this was muscle memory translated into digital format. His communications officer spoke nervously. High Counselor, we're detecting human vessels in attack positions. 47 ships. They have weapons lock. That's impossible, Vraxis whispered. They don't have 47 warships. They do now, sir. For 3 hours, neither fleet moved. The Zenthari ship sat in Earth orbit, surrounded by human vessels that had appeared from nowhere. The galaxy held its breath. On the bridge of the UESS Discovery, Captain Harrison monitored 16 different tactical displays simultaneously. Each showed firing solutions, escape vectors, and casualty projections. Her weapons officer, Lieutenant Marcus Cole, was young, too young to remember the last time humanity had mobilized for war. Captain, the Zenthari are just sitting there. They're thinking, Harrison replied. Probably calling home for orders. Probably realizing they made a miscalculation. Did we really plan all this? The hidden weapons, the secret rearmament protocols? Harrison smiled without humor. Marcus, when humans joined the galactic community, we had a choice. Disarm completely and trust the universe, or disarm visibly while keeping our teeth. We chose option 2. Every exploration ship you've ever served on has been a warship in disguise. Every museum military base has been maintained and ready. Every retired soldier has been on call. Why? Because we remember what happens to peaceful species in violent universes. We studied galactic history. We saw what the Zenthari do to protected worlds. We decided that if peace failed, we'd be ready. On Earth, Ambassador Webb was in emergency session with the Global Defense Council, a group that officially didn't exist but had been meeting quarterly for 50 years. General Patricia Okonkwo, formerly of the African Union Defense Force, leaned forward. Ambassador, give the word and we'll end this in 20 minutes. That's what I'm afraid of, Webb replied. If we destroy the Zenthari fleet, we prove we were always dangerous. Every species in the galaxy will see us as a threat. We'll be isolated, possibly attacked preemptively. And if we back down? Admiral Riker asked. We'll be seen as weak. Every empire in the galaxy will try the same intimidation tactic. Dr. Sarah Kim, the civilian head of the Defense Council, spoke up. There's a third option. We demonstrate our capability without using it. We show them we can destroy them but choose not to. That sends a different message. Webb nodded slowly. Strength through restraint. It's what we've been doing for 50 years, Kim continued. We just need to make it explicit. Webb opened a channel to the Zenthari flagship. High Counselor Vraxis, this is Ambassador Marcus Webb. I'd like to discuss terms. Vraxis's image appeared. His crystalline form was dim, uncertain. Ambassador. I see you've been less than forthcoming about your military capabilities. We never lied, High Counselor. We just didn't advertise. Every weapon system around your fleet was declared in our initial galactic registration, they were listed as inactive or under construction. We simply activated them. You had warships disguised as exploration vessels. We had exploration vessels capable of defending themselves. There's a difference. Vraxis's form flickered, frustration. What do you want, Ambassador? The same thing I wanted 3 days ago. An alliance of equals. Trade agreements that benefit both species. Cultural exchange. Mutual defense against external threats, not against each other. And if we refuse? Webb's expression hardened. Then you have a choice, High Counselor. You can leave Sol System peacefully, and we'll pretend this was a misunderstanding. Or you can escalate, and we'll show you exactly why humans have spent 50 years desperately trying to be diplomatic. You're threatening the Zenthari Empire? No, Webb said quietly. I'm offering you an exit with dignity. High Counselor, look at your tactical displays. Really look at them. Your fleet is surrounded. Your ships are outgunned. Your escape vectors are covered. You came here to intimidate us into submission. Instead, you've learned that humans aren't afraid of conflict, we're afraid of winning. Vraxis was silent. We've run the simulations, Webb continued. If this turns into a shooting war, we'll win. But we'll also become what we've spent half a century trying not to be. We'll remember that we're very, very good at warfare. And once we remember, High Counselor, we won't be able to forget. Webb leaned forward. So I'm asking you, as one diplomat to another, let's both choose peace. Not because either of us is weak, but because we're both strong enough to walk away. The transmission hung in silence. Finally, Vraxis spoke. What guarantees do we have that Earth won't use these weapons offensively? The same guarantee we've given for 50 years, our word. We could have built an empire, High Counselor. We had the technology, the tactics, and the will. We chose not to. That hasn't changed. Another pause. I'll need to consult with the Zenthari High Command. Take your time, Webb said. We'll be here. News of the standoff had spread across the galaxy in hours. The council chamber on Terminus Station was packed with representatives who demanded an emergency session. Admiral Krenth stood before them, displaying real-time tactical feeds from Sol System. As you can see, the Zenthari fleet is completely surrounded. Human vessels appeared from what we thought were civilian positions. Cargo haulers became destroyers. Science vessels deployed weapons that shouldn't exist. The humans have been building a hidden fleet for decades. Counselor Mira drifted forward, her bioluminescence flickering with concern. This is unprecedented. The humans lied about their military capabilities. Did they? Admiral Krenth pulled up Earth's initial galactic registration documents. According to their filings, they declared 47 vessels capable of mounting weapon systems, multiple ground-based defense platforms listed as inactive, and military reserves totaling 300 million personnel. Everything was documented. We simply didn't believe them. Ambassador Thex hissed thoughtfully. We assumed inactive meant abandoned. We didn't realize they meant dormant but functional. The humans have been conducting the greatest military deception in galactic history, another counselor accused. They presented themselves as peaceful while maintaining a war fleet. Or, Admiral Krenth countered, they genuinely wanted peace but weren't stupid enough to disarm completely. There's a difference between deception and prudent preparation. The debate raged for hours. Some species were terrified of humans, others impressed, most confused. Finally, an unexpected voice spoke up. Commander ZYX of the Hive Collective, a species that communicated through pheromones, transmitted through their translator. We understand humans. The chamber quieted. The Hive Collective rarely spoke in council sessions. Our species has a warrior caste, ZYX continued. They are bred for combat, designed to protect the hive. But we keep them separate from our civilian population. Why? Because warriors who know only war eventually make war inevitable. We teach them philosophy, art, and peace, not to weaken them, but to make them wise enough to know when not to fight. ZYX's translator flickered as the pheromone message intensified. Humans are a warrior species who taught themselves to be peaceful. They carry weapons but choose not to use them. They know warfare but practice diplomacy. This is not deception, this is evolution. They are what all warrior species should aspire to become. Ambassador Thex leaned back. So we should trust them? We should respect them, ZWX corrected. Humans are dangerous, yes. But they are dangerous the way a sheathed sword is dangerous, potentially lethal, but controlled. The Zenthari made a mistake by trying to force them to draw that sword. Back in Sol System, Captain Harrison received an update from Fleet Command. Discovery, we're getting movement from the Zenthari flagship. They're transmitting something to the Council. Harrison pulled up the transmission. It was Vraxis, addressing the entire galactic community. This is High Counselor Vraxis of the Zenthari Empire. I wish to make a public statement regarding recent events in the Sol System. The Zenthari Empire made an error in judgment. We interpreted human diplomatic behavior as weakness rather than wisdom. We attempted to coerce Earth into an unequal alliance through intimidation. The transmission showed the tactical situation, Zenthari ships surrounded by human vessels. As you can see, humans are far from weak. They possess significant military capability that they have chosen not to use. I am publicly withdrawing the Zenthari fleet from Sol System and offering Earth a formal alliance based on mutual respect and equality. Furthermore, I am recommending to the Galactic Council that humans be recognized not as a peaceful species, but as a warrior species who have chosen peace. Harrison watched in amazement as the Zenthari ships began powering down weapons and adjusting course out of Earth orbit. Captain, Lieutenant Cole asked, did we just win a war without firing a shot? Better, Harrison replied. We prevented one. That's what humans do best, we remember our history so well that we never want to repeat it. 3 weeks later, Ambassador Webb stood before the full Galactic Council. The chamber was packed, every species representative present. The atmosphere was different now, cautious respect replacing the previous condescension. Webb began without preamble. For 50 years, Earth has been apologizing. Apologizing for our ships, our culture, our very existence in the galactic community. We've abstained from votes, compromised on agreements, and bent over backward to avoid conflict. Many of you interpreted this as fear. As weakness. He paused, letting his words sink in. You were wrong. We weren't afraid of conflict, we were afraid of ourselves. Humans spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare. We built weapons that could exterminate all life on our planet. We developed tactics, strategies, and technologies focused solely on destruction. We became very, very good at killing. Webb pulled up historical images, mushroom clouds, battlefield graveyards, destroyed cities. And then we looked at what we'd become and made a choice. We decided that just because we could be monsters didn't mean we should be. We chose to be better. We joined the galactic community hoping we'd never need to use those old skills again. High Counselor Vraxis spoke from his seat, his crystalline form now showing a steady, respectful glow. Ambassador Webb, the Zenthari Empire has learned a valuable lesson. We mistook your desire for peace as inability to wage war. A common mistake, Webb acknowledged. But understand this, High Counselor, every species in this chamber, Earth's desire for peace is genuine. We don't want war. We don't want conflict. We will negotiate, compromise, and apologize our way out of problems whenever possible. His voice hardened. But we won't be vassals. We won't be intimidated. And we won't allow our pursuit of peace to make us victims. The moment diplomacy truly fails, we'll remember every lesson our bloody history taught us. And those lessons are extensive. Admiral Krenth stood, his avian features sharp with approval. The Talon Imperium formally recognizes Earth as a warrior species with honor. You have proven that true strength is knowing when not to fight. Other species began voicing agreement. The Paxian Federation, the Vrillian Collective, even the cautious Hive Collective all expressed support for Earth's full membership in the Council, not as junior members, but as equals. Counselor Mira drifted forward. Ambassador Webb, I have a question. You mentioned that humans are afraid of what they become during conflict. But your restraint during the standoff suggests you have control over those impulses. So what exactly are you afraid of? Webb was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but carried throughout the chamber. We're afraid that if we start fighting, we'll remember how good we were at it. We're afraid that once we draw our weapons, we won't be able to sheath them. We're afraid that the same creativity and determination that let us conquer a hostile planet will be turned toward conquering a hostile galaxy. He looked around the chamber. Every human alive today grew up learning about World War II, the Holocaust, the nuclear bombings, the genocides. We teach our children about humanity's darkest moments not to make them proud, but to make them vigilant. We know what we're capable of. That knowledge terrifies us. So we apologize constantly. We compromise unnecessarily. We avoid conflict obsessively. Not because we're weak, but because we're strong enough to be terrified of our own strength. The chamber was completely silent. That's why humans fear conflict, counselors. Not the conflict itself, but what we might become during it. The Zenthari fleet incident proved we haven't forgotten our capabilities. But more importantly, it proved we haven't lost our commitment to peace despite those capabilities. Webb straightened his uniform. Earth formally requests full membership in the Galactic Council. We offer our technology, our resources, our diplomatic services, and yes, if absolutely necessary, our military capabilities. But we pray we never have to use that last one. Not for your sake, for ours. High Counselor Vraxis rose. The Zenthari Empire seconds Earth's application and offers a formal alliance of equals. One by one, species representatives voiced their support. When the vote was called, it was unanimous. As Webb left the chamber, Admiral Krenth walked beside him. You gave them a lot to think about, Ambassador. Good. I want them thinking. I want them understanding that humans aren't the harmless primitives they assumed we were, but we're also not the monsters we could be. We're something in between, warriors who chose wisdom. And if someone tests that wisdom again? Webb smiled without humor. Then they'll learn why we tried so hard to avoid being tested. But hopefully, after today, no one will be that foolish. They reached the observation deck. Earth was visible in the distance, a small blue dot among billions of stars. Do you think we've really changed? Krenth asked. Or are you just very good at controlling your nature? Webb considered the question. I think we're both. We haven't stopped being capable of violence, we've just become capable of choosing something else. Every day, billions of humans make that choice. To be kind instead of cruel. To build instead of destroy. To forgive instead of seeking revenge. He turned to face the Admiral. That's not weakness, Admiral. That's the hardest thing any species can do, to know what you're capable of and choose to be better. Humans fear conflict because we remember what happens when we stop choosing to be better. And we're determined never to forget. Behind them, Earth continued spinning, a planet that had produced both the most terrible wars and the most determined peace in galactic history. A world of warriors who had learned to beat their swords into plowshares, but never quite melted them down. Just in case.